In Chord Cookbook, I delved into a number of chord tricks that guitarists use to compose songs or to arrange tunes to get a certain effect. These tricks included adding a melody to a chord, moving an open position chord up the neck, playing bar chords without a bar, close chord voicings, a counterpoint, and the use of pedals. Each of these tricks can set the mood for a composition or part of a song. As guitarists, we can consciously use these tricks as a basis for our songs. Often when you improvise with these chord tricks, you'll get a groove going, and that might become the basis of a new song. Add a melody, some lyrics, stir, and you got a new baby. Because of the limitations of the guitar and the common use of these tricks, you'll need to invest some puzzle time to steer away from the trap of sounding too much like existing songs. The chord trick itself is not enough to make the song sound original. Combining tricks, coming up with original chord changes, a surprising hook, and some inventive lyrics can help you make the song stand out from others. Let's go through these tricks at lightning speed. Each chord is a set of a minimum of 3 different notes. Now, aside from open string chords, we can use bar chords and other shapes, all in our chord progressions to set a certain atmosphere. We can add melody notes to all open string chords by simply removing a finger or adding a finger. This will color the chord in a certain way, and by doing this to a chord in several manners, you can add a melody on top of an open string chord. Many hit songs use this simple principle in one section of a song. It can even be strong enough to function as the hook of a song. Many open position chords can be moved up the neck to create a chord with some nice colors or a chord sequence that can function as a defining section of a song. A simple D chord groove can turn into a hook when you move it up the neck. And combining all these chords with the trick of adding a melody note by removing or adding a finger creates loads of possibilities. Bar chords are open position chords moved up the neck, with the open strings barred by the index finger. If you remove that index finger and replace it on the root note only, so on the 6th or 5th string, you end up with a complete bar chord and some open strings ringing through. These open strings will color the chord and, in a chord sequence, function as a pedal. In this case, it would be a high pedal of the E string and the open B string. The chords you end up with are major chords, derived from major bar chords, and minor chords mostly played as minor 7th chords because of the awkward fingerings of the minor triad bar chords. You can do this with barred chords that have the root on the 6th string. They'll have the E shape, and with roots on the 5th string, that'll have the A shape. In this case, a C sharp minor 7th. Some chords will end up being power chords. If I place it on the 7th fret, for instance, I'll get a really nice E power chord. And some will have some very intricate sounds. Because of the layout of the guitar, we generally go up in pitch when we move towards the higher strings and when we move up the fretboard. This means that when we strum down, we'll first hear the lower sounding notes of the chord and we'll end with the higher sounding notes. We can play with this phenomenon by choosing chord notes consciously and play two chord notes that are close to each other in the chord on adjacent strings. In this way we can create chords that have some tension. This tension is close chord voicing and can be found right around the 5th fret of the guitar. For instance, on this chord, an A minor 7th chord, but also here. And with some wider stretches, you can also get this in other positions on the neck. These chord voicings can characterize a section of a song or just be used to color one chord in a chord sequence. As guitarists, we're used to seeing a chord as a heap of notes thrown together on the fretboard, hand cramps if you will. When we move from one chord to the other as beginning guitarists, we move from one hand cramp to the other. We don't take the number of notes we play into account, like moving from a 6-note chord to a 4-note chord. We also don't think about the route that these individual notes have moving from one chord to the other. It's like a close harmony choir of 6 singers where for no apparent reason one or two of the singers start hanging out at the bar in a certain section of the song and where the others are jumping all over the place. Now, piano players and good composers do look at all the individual notes and make sure that the movement of these voices has some logic to it. The most obvious notes in a chord we need to focus on are the bass and the melody notes. These two pop out at us first, and by making sure that these notes don't jump around or disappear, we can make a chord progression sound logical. One way of doing this is to keep matching notes in two chords the same. In the bass, for instance, when you go from a C chord to an F chord, you can keep the C note the same. Or in the melody, A minor to C. Now, melodies and bass notes each can have a motion upward or down, or they can stay the same. This gives us 9 possible movements to color your chord sequence with. You can add some extra ear candy by using some contrary motion to your chord progression. This means that you move one of the voices up and the other one down. And you can really go to town on this by doing this for every note in every chord you play. Classical composers will certainly do this, but for most pop rock composers, this is a step too far. Other elements like groove and playability will also have to be taken into account. Keeping the bass note or the top note of a chord the same can glue chords together and give a section of a song a certain character. This is called a pedal note. Some songwriters use awkward keys to start their songs in. The reason why only becomes apparent after playing with this key for a while. They have a special sound to them. Born to Love You by Duke Robillard uses the key of F sharp. He plays a chord grip where he leaves the top E string ringing, which gives you a compound sound, the F sharp 7. For a bluesy progression including the flat 3 chord A5, or A major, or A7, or a B5 chord, this chord trick works very well. And we'll see later on in the section about blues harmony that in a bluesy setting we can play a major chord on the flatted seventh of the blues scale in our composition. Now that note in this case is an E note. The E major chord sounds really good with this F-sharp 7 trick. Plus it's easy to play. The F-sharp minor works for the same reason, including the use of the A major chord, the B5 chord, the A5 chord, and in a progression with an F-sharp minor chord, you can also have an E chord. F-sharp minor with an open E always sounds very good. B minor as a starting key gives you the A major as the flatted 7th chord, and the G and D chords both work great in this harmony. As the 5 chord you can use the F-sharp 7 chord that we've just seen with the open E string and the E chord as well. C-sharp minor is the relative minor to E major, and a lot of the E chord tricks that we've seen, like the bar without bar chords, work great in the key of C-sharp minor. These special keys can give you a unique sound in a smaller setting. These chord tricks will be less clear when you play them in a band setting. You might play them on your guitar, but they might get drowned out by other instruments. On the other hand, you can instruct your bass player to help you out with a pedal or with contrary motion. And you can tell other instruments to double up certain melody notes you've incorporated in your chords, or even harmonize them. Possibilities galore. Now I've added the pages of Chord Cookbook that discuss these chord tricks to this chapter for your reference. Chord Cookbook holds another bunch of chord-related tricks that can help you get some inspiration for your new songs. Most of these chord tricks can work on an individual chord or on a chord sequence. They can set the atmosphere for the whole composition or for a single section. Now the only way of really getting a grip on how these chord tricks feel and how they work is to compose a song with them. Nothing will make you realize the potential of these principles more than using them in your own songs.